Well, good afternoon. Just going live today for a little bit. I always say it's going to be, my goal is for it never to go too long, but man, we just get on here and myself, I start rambling, having too much fun. Or no doubt if Beatles joins me, tend to go long, but just going to do a little quick update on the Negro League file, the greats that I'm working on, have been working on here the past week. And Beatles did a great um, show the other day or on his channel where he kind of walked through. He's done a couple cool things. One is he's shared some of the past games, right? APBA, Out of the Park, all the different ones, Pearson. He's shared some of the cool kind of trip down memory lane games. And I think many of us, myself included, have just recently got into some of these. So I've got the APBA Baseball for Windows thing that he put up, that tutorial. It'll help me get going. I haven't had a chance to dig into it yet, but I've got that. I also have Diamond Mine Baseball version 12, which he's also highlighted and walked through. So fun stuff. So I think it's cool that he shared some of that. And then yesterday he did some neat things and going through some of the tools and the functions to set the game up to your liking with ballparks and all that. So I thought, yeah, that's pretty interesting. So maybe today I could just do similar as I share some updates on the actual file itself and talk through some of the tools that I use when I'm setting up some of these home brews, right? Like, creating a blank league, creating teams, creating players and or importing players, because it's really a great function within a game if you're going to import players or create them. So we'll see if we get anybody to join us live. And who knows? It's a snowy afternoon here in Utah, mid-afternoon. Currently working on Louis Santope, played for the Brooklyn Royal Giants and various other teams, but having really fun with the history as I research these players. It's just been really interesting, and I know I've shared it on previous posts, but we're calling it the Buck O'Neill Tribute League, and I've got two teams that I'm working off of as placeholders while I create these, and I think I'm up to 37. Santop will be the 38th player, so I'm up to 37 players already. Team one, you can see I've got them rated. I had yesterday, I spent the majority of the day redoing, well, and Sunday and yesterday, redoing some of the stat lines because I realized that made some adjustments to my one formula and some of the numbers were off. Went back, got those corrected, so now I'm feeling really good about the file. And been adding a lot more pitchers lately. So you can see here on team one here, I've got some part-time pitchers here like Martin Diego and Cristobal Toriente in Charleston that pitch, but also played a lot of positions out in the field besides pitcher. And then I've got some that are pretty much primarily pitchers on here. On team two, I've added a few extras. I've got some extra batters here, some other ones that it's been enjoyable to learn a little bit about. And we can see if we highlight them again, I'm putting my 100-character bio up here for Judd Wilson. I like this one. Known for great power, unique physique, quick temper, and outstanding hitting skills. So, I'm doing a lot of research using Baseball Reference, Bullpen, and Wikipedia and that to try to get a good synopsis of something interesting about the player. And I've built these here recently. So you got Judd Wilson and the positions that they have available to play here. See, a lot of these players are fun to create, and it does take a while because I'm having to research multiple positions for them. You very seldom see somebody that really stuck it out at one. Now, here's one exception, Bingo DeMoss, who in the years I'm rating pretty much was a stellar second baseman. But most of them are playing multiple, at least three or four, and sometimes 7, 8 positions on a field. So it makes it kind of interesting, but also a little time consuming. got two people. Somebody's here joining me. Um, kind of nice. We'll see if anybody else joins us, but just doing an update on this file and going to talk about, some basic tools here in a moment on, I've had some people reach me offline talking about, creating different files and player creation and that. So I thought, well, I could go through some information maybe. So the second team, I'm hoping sometime this week, by the end of this week, I will have two. I almost have enough here to split up and play a game for sure, but I'll have at least two teams. And what I'd also like to have by the end of the week is, since the Negro League file I'm looking at, you could say primarily it's 1900-ish to 1940s. I'd love to build a team of about 25 players of major league greats from that same time period, from 1900 to 1940-ish. And then, oh, hey, great for joining midlife crisis, and also have that available. So by the end of this week, that's what I would like to have done. Maybe it goes into this weekend. Then we can start doing some interesting kind of play testing. And I know Beatles had mentioned to at least have two full Negro League teams to be able to have a game or something, no problem. And then I thought, how cool would it be to have the a major league team representative there so that we can start playing them together too. So that's my goal. I'm feeling really good so far about the formulas and ratings. I've gone back. Hey, World's Worst Gamers here. Thank you. Um, Truly enjoying this project because it's like I'm revealing new things that I didn't know before, right? When I did my 5-year slices, I got to revisit to a deeper level some of the years, and I did so many teams that kind of was revisiting history that I thought I knew and learning what different players I didn't really know, learning more about them. And this is just every time I create a player, there's something I'm learning, not just from looking at their stats, looking at how they, relate to a major league equivalency and trying to pick their best three and which three am I going to pick, and then creating the line and the card. But it's the bio stuff. It's been really cool. And I'm finding pictures for all the players. So while I'm researching player photos, it just makes it a lot more personal and a great learning trip down memory lane as I learn as I go through this. So I'm really having a blast with that. You can see here Matlock I'll need to change. And this is a good thing. Anybody ever has questions on where to display them, like if you look over here and you're seeing pictures that you don't want to display here or batters over in your pitcher lineup, you can always just right click on a player and choose modify. And down here, you can say, I want to display him. Now, Matlock, I probably created him under the batter because you can, whatever tab you're on, you can go up here and choose to create a player. And it's presenting him for both. I'm like, I don't want to see him with a batter because if we look at Matlock, he wasn't playing any other. Oh, see, now he's gone, which is good. So I go over here. I'm going to see him under pitchers. Other people that did both, you want to see them both ways. So, for example, here's Ben Taylor, a first baseman, also pitched a few games. So it makes sense that I'd want to see him as a hitter, of course, but also have him show up on the pitchers tab. So what I'm finding is if you're ever over here in batters and I go up here and say, hey, players, create a new player, it's going to default check it under that tab. Same thing if I was under pitchers and went create, it's going to default show it there. So just right click on the player. There's Bill Foster, modify, and just determine if you want to see it on both screens or just one. Little tip there. Sports Time Machine, hello, hello. I figured, hey, I didn't see Beatles out there today, so I figured, hey, I'll maybe consume some of this mid-afternoon time frame for a little bit and talk some baseball and just go over the progress I've made. Feeling really good with the progress I've made in cranking out players because now I have a really good flow down for all the formulas and a process for how I start, where I get them, how I'm combining stats, doing the fielding numbers and all that. I feel like I can start picking the pace will pick up a little bit for me because I'm getting it down. And again, I looked at some of my formulas. I went back and realized that I had some of my weighting stuff was off and it was causing some of the batting averages to show up a little bit low. I went back and changed that. Um, and I'm happy with where it's at. So let me talk a little bit about that. So we look here at batters. I'm going to pull them up. You can see that OPS, the average plus and OPS plus, 100 being average, anything above. And this gives you a good view as I scroll through here, and you can see how far above average the different players are rated. You know, we're looking here at batting lines, of course. There's some here that weren't known for hitting, and you can look at that with Bruce Petway and Bingo DeMoss. It was known for his glove, and this is Nip Winters, who's actually a pitcher, but he's still pretty close to average, and he had a few games. If we look at his fielding, you can see he did play 5 games at first base, and he's got 38 pitching. And let me just look at Winters, 38, 31. Just pulling his lineup to see how everything shows. So you can see 38 games, 31 started. It's got his WHIP and ERA right here, bio. So I've got everything about caught up. And again, I would love to do it. So midlife, let me tell you a little bit about this slice. I do not specify the slice and what year it's under, but you could get an idea of what I use by simply, when you click on the player, take a look at the year they're assigned to. And let me talk about this. So for Judd Wilson, he's assigned to 1930 Neutral Park. Now, on my sheet, I'll go over here to Judd Wilson. I can tell you, I track it. Judd Wilson is using 1927, 29, and 34. And all I do is take those 3 years up and divide by 3. They come out to 1930, and that's what I assign him to. The other thing I'm doing is I'm taking his MLE line, the Major League Equivalency line that I have, and his neutralized line, which I get from stat heads. And I'm taking all that and I'm reworking him, or what do you say, pushing him into, adjusting him to the year I'm assigning him to. So for the Negro Leagues, I'm taking everything from where they came from and assigning them like I'm bringing them in to 1930 National League. So we've got ballpark factors removed, all that good stuff. So if you looked at this, you could say that range is going to be somewhere around 1930. Now, a lot of times they're like 3 or 4 close years. In his case, there's a little bit of variation. You know, I've got, I'm trying to find him again. I've got 27, 29, and 34. So it's maybe not as intuitive, but it falls right in the middle of that. I could have put the actual information down here in that unique notes category, but I'm really liking the bio from a history perspective to be able to kind of put some tidbits. Reminds me of like a baseball card, the years where they had some interesting things on there, you know, so you could click on it and take a look. And, you know, here's George Carr, also known as Tank, great Negro League first baseman, top hitter with the Kansas City Monarchs in the 20s. That's pretty general. Some of these are really interesting. I just did Leroy Matlock not long ago and found out some really cool things. Had tons of different pitches. He's a lefty, excellent control through curveball, slider, fastball, changeup, and screwball. The one thing you'll notice I have not done is I have not come in here and started editing pitch data, which means for a pitcher, let's look at Matlock. When I create a player, I'm pretty sure it sticks to these defaults. I have not gone in here yet and started selecting his specialty pitch, right? And his estimated fastball speed. Haven't even begun. That'll be something before the file is done that I'll go back and do. I am capturing on a spreadsheet as I read. There's some people that have listed their specialty pitches, right? What their specialty was and what they threw. So I'm making a note of all those things. So I have a good history of that because I find that very interesting. And if there was a specialty pitch here, I'd like to have it reflected there for it to be as realistic as possible, right? The other thing I'm doing is I'm allowing the game. You can see the options here from extreme fly ball to ground ball. As soon as I create the players, I'm coming in here. And let me go out to the main screen. As soon as I get some players created, I'm going to generate default ratings for them. And again, I've explained this before, but I go to player ratings under organized default. And if you look at this, these are the only ones checked that I'm generating. And the reason is the ones that are unchecked, I'm researching that myself. So I have formulas for that and research that can give me the hold rating, what I'm going to assign catcher arm, double play pivot, the outfield arm, and fielding ranges. That's all that stuff I do. The rest of these ratings, I'm going default, and the game engine itself will look at some of the formulas for, it's going to give a bunt rating based on how many sacks somebody had per at bats, right? It's pretty much that simple. So you'll see if we go look at the bunt ratings it's generated. Same thing with ground ball, fly ball percentage with pitcher. No doubt it has to do with some of the extra base hits in that. Um, and we'll see how this shakes out when I've got a full file done. But you can say, boom, generate ratings. Yes, boom. So you can come in here and generate all of them, or just one or two. I just choose these. I have the real pass balls. So once you have pass balls for a catcher, figure out the pass ball rate, and it'll just convert that over to how many pass balls they'll have versus so many um, put outs or games played or whatever the heck it's from. So having fun with all this. Let's take a look at some of the ratings on Team 2 here. Let's pull up the batters, take a look at bunt ratings, and you can see. So Judd Wilson, it's giving him a default sack bunt rating right here of 3. And we look over here and see he's got 8 sacrifice hits, right? So if you look at somebody that's got a higher bunt sack number, let's look at Sam Bankhead. He's got more. He's up to 11, right? Bunt sack 6 for Bingo DeMoss. He's getting a 6 rating, and he's got a oh, here it is, 23, right? So you can see the more it goes up, it's going to give them a rating. The one thing that's interesting to me, and I will go back and end up tweaking this, is there's an internal rating it'll give for bunt hit. And if you notice, even if you're a 2-sack bunt, it looks at your base running and your speed. And to me, that bunt hit rating looks too high. So if we look at somebody with good speed here, like Bankhead's a 7, he's a 5-sack. Okay, maybe that makes sense, but some of these will look a little bit off. So I'll go back when I've got the file farther along and done, and really go in and maybe tweak some of these things that might look like they're a little high or not. But for the most part, some of the default ratings look really good on the ones I've selected. So good. If anybody's got any questions, post them. I got five people hanging out here, so just enjoying some time. What else have I got to show in this? We'll go back to Team 1. So this is the team that had some really well-known stars on it, right? Like Torriente, Oscar Charleston. So if we click on that, look at the OPS here. So now on Torriente, it's a 162 OPS. That's crazy. That's a high number. Oscar Charleston's a 183. Willie Wells, 149. Josh Gibson, that's a big 9.222. So you can look at, this is the line he's got right now based on all the formulas I've crunched. 144 games played, 54 home runs. He's batting 344. So it's, these are what I would call very Ruthish numbers, which is the comparison everybody made to that type of hitter. It could hit for average and power, drive-in runs, all that good stuff. So it will be interesting to see when I create the major league all-star team using the same, me picking the 3 years. And that's what I should have said to Midlife to verify. These aren't consecutive years. I'm just looking and picking the 3 best years. Some subjectivity to it, but I use OPS plus a lot, and then look at the games played. And I'll give you a good example. If somebody played different positions, I might grab 1 year from each. So Pete Rose is a good example. I think in my research, I've got Pete Rose in like 1969, 73, and 76. And what that gives me is it gives him some of those great outfield years, but it also gives me by 1976 a really good batting line. But now he's carded with games at third base too, which makes it in a greatest team or player league makes him versatile, right? Versus just taking all 3 years where he was a third baseman or all 3 years where he was an outfielder. So I do throw some of those considerations in when I'm trying to figure out which years. Um, but yeah, find the best three. I've got the MLE equivalency information that I bring in and take a look at. And then in StatHead, I can go in and take their stats and neutralize them to a specific year. So what I'm doing is taking those numbers and trying to put them in a year and have the ballpark factors removed, which is great. So you'll see he's 1935, and this stat line here has already been adjusted to the style of play for 1930 National League. And the reason I did it is the game has, let me just pull this up. The game engine in it has, for the years that Action PC has created, you can see that they have I've already been messing with some different errors. They have, well, if we go to a year where there was a known, here's 1936, you'll see there are files here through the 40s, 36, 35, where 1934, there is a Negro League era. So if we look at National League that year, 279 average, American League 278, Negro League's a little lower, 269. If we go to a year like 1940, okay, you'll notice there is no specific data in here because Action hasn't made a file for 1940. So anything would just default to the National League. So you'll notice that American has its own, National has its own, and the Negro League will always default to the National League if there isn't data for it. I've crunched and have data, even though it's not complete and Action hasn't built files off of it. I have known data right from seam heads for some of these eras. So what I've done is now I can kind of create the difference in those errors. But I can't take Josh Gibson, okay, and put him in 1930 and have it be Negro League because it's not unique. You'll see they haven't done the 30 season, so Negro League is actually national. So what I did is said, well, you know what? I'm just going to convert using the StatHead tool, get my data, get that line done, then convert it over to the style of play for 1930 national. That way the game engine doesn't have to do that work. And then these players will be in a neutral park already set to 1930 National League. So that'll be the cool thing because I'm trying to set this up to be able to play all-time greats combined. So fun stuff, behind the scenes fun stuff, right? 1921, Action has a file. You'll see Nationals 289 average here, Americans 292, and Negro Leagues 269 because they have their own data. One of the things you can see about the data, if you look at like 1921, look at the walks to strikeouts. Pretty close, right? Here in the American League, a little bit more walks per strikeout. National League, just a hair more, a little bit more strikes per walkout. You go to the Negro League, look, both are up. So you've got quite a few more. The other thing that I've noticed early years, it evens out later, but in the early years, you look at the error rate um, where you're around 40s here in the 20s, and the Negro League would be right around high 50s to 60. So there is a little bit of conversion going on there, but National League and American League a little bit similar. Negro League, what tells me completely different style of ball, right? Take a look at the stolen bases here as well. You've got 17 per 1,000 at bats, 16 right on. You go to Negro League, you're looking at 30, and that's pretty consistent. So it's almost double the amount of steal attempts. So definitely a different style of baseball being played there. So that's why it's very important to get that conversion over. And little behind the scenes look at that good stuff. Midlife Crisis says, I was just asking because I have a potential project in mind. I've had it in mind for a long time, but I'm looking for a specific era of the Negro Leagues. Yeah, and that's what I'm compiling right now too, is to have what I did is I took era data for American and National, and then I did the rolling average, averaged it out, and then got decade numbers. Because I was just interested in having decade numbers. I'm going to have the same for the Negro Leagues as best as I can do it. Taking a look, let me pull that one up. So yeah, so if you go in the game engine action, any ones they've had rated, they've got 20, 21. You can see Negro League, the batting averages were down just a little bit here. 1923, very similar. So if you look at this, 285, 282, Negro League 285. So they're right on with batting average right here. Okay. Um, what's different? Well, errors are 40%. Oh, wait, 22. There we go. 274. So 1922, there's still a little bit. Let's see, 34, batting 268. So you see the Negro League average is a little bit down. Now, one thing to be aware that I've learned is one of the reasons why their batting averages were down is they played in some big parks. And there isn't enough good park data to be able to assign them to a specific park and be able to do it like we and have that data. So you can realize that batting average was affected by that a little. They were definitely more pitcher friendly parks, but fun stuff. So yeah, pretty soon I'll have enough teams. I could probably play a game today if I wanted to, right? I could break. I've got enough to get going. I see. I don't on team two if I've got my positions covered. Yeah, can always look at reports, roster analysis. It'll tell me how many games. Relief pitchers 5 that combine for 45 different games. We're pretty good. Shortstop and center field and right field. And so I need to get a shortstop covered and a couple more outfielders on this team, um, and we'll be good. The other thing that's good to know, a lot of people have mentioned the ratings in the game. So if you take a look, that's built into the game and is a internal formula that'll just for reference purposes show you what the ratings are. You'll see up here with Toriente, it's 8.3. And you'll notice the higher the rating, the higher their value is going to be as well. So when we look at a player card here, modify them, you'll see you've got the Dave Koch sports value right here, which is not editable because the game has an internal formula it uses to based on their stats and ratings and all that, it gives this number. But if you were playing in a league and wanted to come up with your own salary and whatever, this is editable right here. So you could have that. And then you go to rules and you tell it through the rules which one you want to use. Pretty sure. Let me go over here. Rules, info, general. I know it's here somewhere. I don't ever use it. Usage miscellaneous. Oh, the outcome box. Oh, it's somewhere here. Beatles and I always do this when we're trying to find something. We're like, oh, I know it's here. Can't find it. Oh, right here. You'd come in here and say, hey, I want to go over here and use the real salary. And that's how if you had a salary league going year to year and you wanted to do it, you could enter your own. So you can set that up right there. But you'll notice as you go through it, it's a good eyeball reference real quick to take a look at how a player did. So 8.3 is really a high rating. Charleston's a 9. Josh Gibson's got to be higher. Yeah, 9.6. I mean, I don't know how you get closer to a 10. Maybe Barry Bonds with those crazy numbers he put up, or a Babe Ruth season, but this is as high as you'll see. And you'll look at the corresponding value. I think this is a great way, um, actually, to set up a greatest league, because if you think about it, once I get a huge file where I've got great Negro League players, great MLB players, right? And we're going to do a draft. Some people will say, well, wow, the players are all so good. They're just premier players here. There's so many in history. Each team's loaded. One way to handle that is to make up a salary cap, figure out, so that way not everybody, you don't have an outfield of Babe Ruth and, Ted Williams and Cool Papa Bell, and then, your pitchers are Christy Mathewson and Cyclone Joe Williams. So uh, it throws a little bit of strategy into how do you assemble a team, right? So MV is in the house. MV, a big inspiration and provoker, I think is the right room, right room. I saw him say room, right word for this project. Just giving a little update, MV, and answering some questions on this. But you can see the rating here on Gibson high. Turkey Stearns, like anybody with over an 8 is just really, really premier player. Now, Martin Dihigo, he's a 9.7. Wow. How did he get to be that way? Well, look, he can pitch, right? And if we look at his pitching, he's a 156 ERA plus, so he's a well above average. He's a very good pitcher. And batting, he's going to bat 333, hit 28 home runs. Then we go look at fielding and look at this. The guy can play every position except catcher. So definitely inside the game, they're weighting all of those elements that he's a premier batter, he's a great pitcher, even though he's only going to start what 19 games or 16 games, but it's really putting a lot of value on that. So he's 15.6 million. We go to Josh Gibson, right? He's a little lower in the rating, but look at the value it gave him, 16.6. So I think that's the highest so far on the file. Another cool thing we can do is go to reports. Let's go out to the main category up here. And I always like to go up to reports this way. Reports, let's take a look at league top salaries. It's another cool thing if you wanted to see. And you can see what the estimated salary based on their line is right here. And what's interesting is it's showing Oscar Charleston under, I think he only pitched in 5 games, but I mean, look at that high salary there. So Ben Taylor pitched a little bit. He's high up there. Also a great hitter. So this is a nice snapshot. If you have a league file, just kind of wanted to rank it this way or by team. It's Big Clue coming in. What's up, man? Yeah, I'm doing great. Just taking a little break here and discussing the file this afternoon. And MV, I am up to, I think I'm working on my 38th player right now. I've got 37 done. So by this weekend, I hope to have the salaries, Big Clue, are assigned. Just covered this. Let me pull this thing up. The game internally looks at all their data and assigns them a salary. It's very reminiscent of how they assign them the player value. So when we click on a card here, we'll go modify Toriente, you'll see this DKS value down here, and it's grayed out, meaning it's not editable. If you wanted to override their salary and use like a made up salary because you have a league that's using your own salary, you could do that here. And then if you want to use it, you come right on over here to rules and you go right in here. I always never miss it. Right here, and you select use the real salary or DKS value. I've got it always set to DKS value. And it's an internal formula, proprietary to them, have no idea how it figures it. And it takes a look at all the things, the ratings, the player stats and all that, and then spits out an estimated value. I think that the value is better than a real, and this is why I think it's great for a draft league, right? Because it's based on that card, right? So, it's not like you're going to be paying for, oh, the value is 11 million, but it's, a part-time, 50 game player that's batting 200. That's not going to happen. It's always going to be reminiscent of the performance you should get off of their card. So to me, that's a really good way to take a look at, finding what, if we're going to have a draft league with this, for example, and once we get tons of players, right? And you don't just want to have all the premier, you want to have a decent balanced team. That's a good way to kind of look at it. I know DMB Online has salary cap so that you don't just have super loaded teams. You can do a non-salary cap league as well, but I think it's a really cool feature in the game to be able to set that limit for draft leagues. Left arm side throwing William Foster. Well, let's take a look at him. I've got Rube Foster and I've got Bill Foster right over here. So I've created him yesterday, MV. So let's take a look at Bill Foster. Here's his line right here. He's a lefty. Pull his card up. He's the left-handed pitcher and younger brother of Rube Foster, once won 23 games in a row. Interesting fact on him. And if we take a look at his ERA plus, and again, this is a great stat here, 100 being average, right? It's showing you that he's well above average here. And if you hover over it. And what's interesting is some of these have been adjusted for my own file because I have neutralized all of the stats toward the 1930 National League. Well, I should say 1930. That's not true, but 1930, the team is set. Let me clear this up. So I've got the teams all sent to 1930 National League. The players, like Foster right here, he will be set to 1927 because for Foster, I'm using 26, 27, and 28. So he's got 1927 and he's in a neutral park, but he's in a neutral park and his stats have been converted over towards the era of 1930 National League. The reason I'm doing that is Action doesn't have all of the Negro League files built into it. So what I'm doing is assigning it to that line, and that way I can go into baseball, then the stat head. I can select, in his case, National League 1927, and gear all his information over to that. And that's helping me build the player so that there's a consistent approach. And it does all the good work for me. Familiar with Adam Dorosky's work over at the Hall of Stats? Well, Adam just last year adopted Eric MLC. Ready for? Oh, great. No, oh my God. Let me go search this name now. Thanks, Big Clue. Okay, typing this in here. More work. No, and I love reading this stuff. And for those of you that are just joining here, um, Beatles is in the house. Dorowski. So let me put his work up here. Okay. I'm going to save this. Done. Cool. I've got that bookmarked here so I can go look at that. Destroying baseball fans' marriages since 2022. That's true, man. Glad to see ya. Beatles. Yeah, Beatles. I'm filling in that daytime stuff that you left vacant here today a little bit. I was at the beginning of this. You can go back and listen, talking up kind of. We've had some cool trip down nostalgia lane with the stuff that you've shown at the old games. Then yesterday you coming on there and explaining kind of a tutorial and how to set up. And I'm just talking through some other, showing off the file, but talking through some of the other features in the game when it comes to the values and the ratings and different things like that, and salaries that you can use. And it's really neat. I don't use a lot of salaries, but in a league, it would be great because it they're a true representation of the card. So, if you wanted to say, hey, we're going to have a $90 million salary cap, which may be smart in a draft league once we get tons of players into here. But MV has been doing research and was wanting to know about Willie Foster, Bill Foster here. So I'm pulling up his card. Good pitcher, left-handed pitcher. Let's take a look at his fielding. He's a straight-up pitcher. Didn't field any other positions. Let's take a look at Ray. Ray Brown, great pitcher, had a slider and a knuckleball. Best pitch was the curveball. Frank Warfield at second. I don't have him yet, but he's again. I'm working down my career WAR list that they have at Seam Heads and trying to figure out who to work next. But having fun. I'm having fun with this. Let's take a look at fielding. But you'll look at here's Ray Brown, right? Above average batting right here. Take a look at his pitching. A 143, a good pitcher, and he's fielding several positions here. So he's got 38 games at pitcher, and then you can play him in the outfield too. The one thing um, I'm really liking about this is it's fun, man. It's almost like you can tell it's almost like a cool Sandlot feature, right? And you'll see that with some early players, right? The pitchers that we used to have in the major leagues that might play a few games in the outfield, like maybe one or two here or there, right? Um, but these guys are playing all over the place, and I'm finding it just really cool. Now, it takes a little bit longer to when I'm creating a player card because of some of that and pitchers that played fielding positions and batted, but hey, what the heck? It's a trip down memory lane. Love it. Tubby Scales, big clue. Let's go look at George Tubby Scales. Oh, where is he? I know I've got him. Here's George Scales right down here. Great player and manager, played infield from 26 to 46 and was known as a great. Wait a minute. What have I got? Scales. Why is it picking up that? I might have to go edit. Yesterday, what I noticed is some of these things were already pre-populate when I was trying to create players. So I had to, was known as a great, oh, he's known as a great curveball hitter. Maybe I'm onto something here. Maybe, let's take a look at George Scales here. I'm on the wrong team again. Maybe when I go to edit notes, it'll let me put in longer notes, but it'll only display the first batch. But yet, if I right click, I can have deep, deep notes. Beatles wants to know, will there be day baseball on Thursday? Ooh, well, let me take a look at my calendar that I have up right here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm from 4:30 to 5:30 Eastern time. I'm tied up, but anytime before that or after that. Here's what I'm in. What's interested. Let's take a look at scales. Let's try something else. So if I look at scales over here under notes, right? When I okay, let's go over to the field. If I go to click on this, let's see how much I can write. Do, 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 do. See if I can get it all. Get rid of some of my words. Let's go back to scales. There we go. Now I've got it all showing up. Yeah, George Scales, a 136, above average for sure. Take a look at fielding. He's rated at 2. I've got him at second and third base. Anybody else? Okay, MV's got talking about Bingo DeMoss. I've got DeMoss over here on team 2. Beatles, I'm up to 30. I'm doing my 38th player right now. He's not built yet, but I have 37 players completely built. Sunday and yesterday, I went in and found some error in my formulas, went back and redid them, and it resulted in the averages coming up where they needed to be because I started noticing they were too deflated. So I went and I've neutralized every player now, just like they over to a neutral park and the National League for the specific year that I'm using for them. So in other words, bingo to Moss right here. I'm using 1922. He's basically been converted over like he was in 1922 National League. So now I can send him to 22 National League and neutral park. So now he's ready to roll. And here's DeMoss, not big with the bat. He's a 271 hitter, which isn't great considering the averages some of those people put up. So you can see he's below average, a 79 OPS. Not a lot of power, but yeah, he's a 10 second baseman. The dude's range was crazy. Thanks, Big Clue. I'm like, yeah, number 38. We're working on Louis Santo right now, and I can tell you MLE'd over. He's looking right now like a 343 hitter, and then when I neutralize him over to stat head and put him in because Santop is going to be 1924. I'm using, um, oops, I'm sorry, 1922. I'll convert him over, so we'll see how that affects him. But he'll be above a 300 hitter, catcher. Right now, I'm trying to figure out how many games he's going to play. I've got to double check that because it may not be 100, but oh well. Taking a look at the line, if anybody wants to see some of these premier batters over here on Team One, some of these guys right here, Toriente. We're looking at their values and ratings up here. But look at these guys. Oscar Charleston, definitely a person you'd want on your team. I mean, great. He's batting 364. He's hitting 29 home runs, scoring runs, knocking them in, steal 34 bases. In fielding, he's a 10 in center field. He can also play first. And look, you can get a handful of games emergency out of him at pitcher. Not a bad player to have on your roster. So when we look at the batting line, his OPS is 183. Anything you get up close to 200 is those premier, like Babe Ruth type years. But then let's take a look at this guy, Josh Gibson. 54 home runs, 151 RBIs, batting 344. And again, a great catcher. Great arm, more than range at catcher. That's the one thing. I've got him a 7, and I painstakingly went through some of the range ratings they got on him. But it's good stuff. Turkey Stearns, take a look at Turkey. He can play outfield position. All his games pretty much are in center field, although he did play some left field just because of the years I'm using for him. But old Turkey Stearns, another great home run hitter right here. Mule Suttles, right? Good power hitter, good OPS over 1,000. He's going to play a lot of first base, couple outfield positions. Anyway, I'm just having a blast creating these. So I thought I'd pop on here live and go through it and show off a couple little tools and explain some of the ratings and the default generator and all that good stuff. But we will be close to having a game. So yeah, that's he's very similar to Willie Mays for sure. Um, I'd love to have. I mean, you look at these guys, and the one thing I want done, I'm hoping next weekend, Beatles, to have the two teams set up where you can play a game right between these two teams, or even maybe have more, and you can figure out which you want. But I also want to have at least a 25-man roster, greats MLB from 1900 to 1940ish, just same time frame as these, where I can put players in there and have like a kind of an all-star team so that I can see what their numbers look like with the same approach, neutralized. Um, I'll give you an example. I do have some numbers for Gehrig. So if we look at Josh Gibson in his line right here, I've got Gehrig done. I have to pop over here and take a look at my Yankee file. I started just for grins and giggles to take a look. And using the same approach, I take Lou Gehrig and assign him to, and this is the only thing, I'm using 27, 30, and 34. That averages to 1931. So what do? I take his stat line and then I convert it over to 1931 American League. And here's a stat line for Gehrig: 356 average, 47 home runs. Who else I got here? I got Joe DiMaggio done. 130 games. He's batting 364 with 30 home runs. And set in 1940. Mickey Mantle, set to 1957. 148 games played, 42 home runs, batting 339, 129 runs batted in. So you can see where Josh Gibson ranks with those. So, and those numbers I'm giving you, those are only three players I've done for the Yankees, but I did them just to kind of see how they turn out when I neutralize them towards the mid-year that I'm going to use. So, or the year, like 57 for Mantle, 40 for DiMaggio. That baseball stat head is awesome. So I'm getting my membership's worth out of that on this project for sure. Been a great tool. Because what that means is when I create them, their ballpark impact has been removed. So I can just have a neutral parked with the year done right for both this set and the Major League Baseball, and then when you play them, then you can put them in whatever park you want. Kind of an equal footing. I may take Willie over Oscar every day, but that's no shame. Oscar, in my opinion, was the greatest Negro League in history, and Willie is still probably, yeah, I'm a big fan of Willie. Yeah, Mickey Mantle, right? I haven't done any of their fielding ratings, but let me bring this over here. These are the final, so I can pull this screen up and let you know. That's the stat lines right here after I got them set and neutralized. In fact, I need to put myself a little note here that these have all been neutralized so that I know that this is a final number here. But you can see and with Mantle, you're going to get that 15 stolen bases and only got caught twice, right? So, Clash of the Titans. Let's see. Yes, a big Clash of the Titans. And again, I'm cranking out the player photos. So if you look through here, I've got all my photos done, the bio information. So yeah, I'm just having a blast with it. I really am. It's some of the most fun I've ever had doing research because it's become like a history lesson. I don't know if Arnold Hunter's on here, but Arnold sent me the best message earlier today. He cracked me up, man. He cracked me up. He said something like, "Hey, Steve," he said last night, I think he was watching Ken Burns baseball, and something happened where he um, did the he got inspired. Right, they were talking about some of the Negro League All Star games, and he got so excited he got the idea to take action PCs, the seasons they do have, and import the players and create a file. He said he woke his wife up and told her about it, and she told him to go back to bed or something like that. She wasn't impressed. And I told him, hey, welcome to the world of home brewing, right? And to me, if you've already got those, it's so easy. I think I've shown it before, but the cool thing is like, here, let's take team three. That's kind of a space holder. Any file that you own, if you want to just drag an existing player or a team in, that's easy. You could go to the roster screen and drag a team. But if you wanted to start creating for this team here, an all-star one, you just go here to player import. And if you can just go pick any file you have in your database. So he's talking about, grabbing a specific Negro League file. He could come in here, and then you could just go team to team and say, I want to bring somebody in, and just go through it. And then you're like, oh, Bill Yancey, yeah, I want him. I want him, and him. And then once you get them from that year, you just hit import players. Yes. Okay. Exit, and then guess what? They're all sitting there on your team. The one thing I have noticed when you do that, you got to clear these notes because, well, it seems like when you've been messing with notes and you've had that page up and then you don't close out and come back in and you come into import, it's defaulting some notes on there that aren't really representative of that player. So anyway, so we've got these hitters there, and then if I don't want them, I'm like, hey, I don't want any of these things, right? I can come down here and right click. If I don't want the player, I can just delete him. Oh yeah, I don't want this player. And I don't want this player. Oh, I want to trade this player. So there's a lot of things that you can do very easily when you have the files to move players around, import players to make like an all-star, team, any of that kind of good stuff. I'm clicking all kinds of buttons here. Got a question here. Which player has surprised you the most in terms of stats and bio? Yeah, and I agree with Big Clue saying the Charleston Leonards and Loys and those are your premier players. They're going to go head to head with the premier players of that time, right? Ruth Gehrig. And, I would say, really what I should say, it would be, I would say the biggest surprise is how many pitchers weren't just strictly a pitcher that played different things. That's probably the one thing that surprised me. And how many of them, like if we take a look at here, like with Joe Williams, if I pull his card up and look at fielding, even he played two other positions. And I'm not talking about like the equivalent of one game or two. Yep, 8 games here, 5 games there. We look at Rube Foster, he played first in right field. Bullet Rogan, look, great pitcher, but he played second left. And look at the games he played out here. So he's a full-time player that's going out there and pitching. He's going to give you 39 starts, right? But you're also going to get some good use out of him in the outfield. That's probably been the most surprising. Mendez, the 39 start. And what threw me off here is when I see games started, that's games started at that fielding position. A lot of data doesn't exist on that, so we don't put it into that'll track in the replay, right? It got me worried that they didn't have games started as pitcher, but that's a completely different line. But this will track in your replay how many they started. But look, he's got 4 other positions he's rated at. And when you actually look at their ratings at these, the other thing that surprised me is they're decent fielders. It's not like it's a 1 or a 2 rating because they just were out there for an inning or two or just a couple of games. These players have the ability to really field those positions. Yeah, I mean, very versatile, Beatles, very, very versatile. I mean, Dahigo right here. Look at this guy. I mean, that, he's halftime pitcher, I'd call it, right? He's pitching 19 games, but look at this guy. This guy is going to play first, second, third, and he's going to play it well. Every one of those positions, he's average or slightly above average. That's incredible. I mean, that's why you're going to pay 15.6 million. You got a 9.7 rating on the guy because he's a great two-way player, hit for power, had a fine glove, and a superior throwing arm. And guy's tough. And if you look at pitching, you're going to get 19 games, 13 starts out of him. And look, he's still a 156 ERA plus. He's well above average. It's a great pitcher. And as a batter, he's a 140. I mean, so it's the guy you want on the field. You're just going to move him over to another position when it's time for him to hit. Just bring him in and let him hit. Cristobal Toriente, he's pitching, right? He's only got a handful of games he's pitching. He's kind of the opposite. He's a position player that can come in, he and Oscar Charleston, and pitch a few games for you. Charleston started 2 out of the 6 right here, right? So to me, I'd say that's probably the most. We don't see anything in early baseball and MLB. You're going to see some pitchers, a few of them, that actually played a handful of positions. Of course, and then you have that Ruth phenomenon. But other than that, it's very typical here. It's really cool. It's almost like high schoolish or Sandlot or college-ish, where they really roll on over, and hey, they're athletes, man. Let's put them at second, put them at third. Oh, you need to come in and pitch, come on in and pitch. So to me, that's been a really cool thing to see. Takes a little bit longer to get them rated, but it's fun. It's fun. So what else have I got here? What stood out at me? Yeah, that's probably the most that stood out. Some of these batters I had no ideas of. I mean, let's go to team two here. These are some of the newer ones I've created. Um, who did I really know? Here's one guy that I really had not any knowledge of was Quincy Troop here. Let's pull his card up. I mean, he's above average hitter. Look at this. He's batting 315. He's got a little pop in the bat. Um, doesn't pitch. Mainly a catcher, but can also play third and left. Don't think I've never knew anything about this player. Um, yeah, Beatles bring up a good thing. Smokey Joe Wood, another one of those great things. He turned out to be a great batter when he was a pitcher, and then when he gave up a great pitcher, gave up pitching and had that great stick still. So, but yeah, Quincy Troop, this guy, also an amateur boxing champion, played from 1930 to 49 and played 14 seasons in Latin America. So if I go to modify over to Quincy Troop, huh, I'm just going to have to look and make sure that when I get the card up, everything's displaying on it so it doesn't cut things off. It's something I'll mess with and edit here because I'm just noticing the field lets me go over a little bit over 100, but it cut off Latin American. So I can always change some of the bio stats, but loving doing that, getting all the ratings in. And you'll see the game does this. So the game will look at this and say, what's his basically probably slugging percentage? And then they're going to give him, so he's a 10 versus right-handed people or right-handed pitching, right? And he's only an 8 versus left-handed. So you can see the game is taking um, the, I guess, historical or in generating lefty righty splits on them based on historical averages. Big guy, 6'2", 225. So going to be fun. That's a guy. There's another pitcher that I can't say I've ever even remembered his name. These two, Nip Winters, right here. 38 games, 31 he can start. 2.91 ERA. Right, this is what I like. He's a lefty pitcher known for his fastball, curveball, and his poor display control, as you'll see with his 92 walks right there. Um, and let's take a look at pitching. And bam, now it's good. I had not done that yet. So that kind of let me know looking at that line. I hadn't gone down there and let it estimate all the good stuff. So now let me go back to my default ratings. These are all the default ratings I use because the rest of them, I do the ratings, boom. We'll go back to winners, take a look at him now. And there you go. Now we can see he's got real numbers versus, he's a lefty. He's got real numbers versus lefty. And you'll see what his batting lines are against each one of those. Cannonball Redding. Let me pull up the list. Love the name and reading more. So, hey, we know MV when we do a draft, he's going to want Bingo DeMoss. Well, here's what you're going to get with him. You're going to get one of the greatest bunters. Okay. So it's just looking at the sheer number here. So he's going to have his bunt for hit and bunt sack on here, but it's also going to have, this is what you're going to love. He's basically a gold glove. He's a 10 at second. Oh, it's going to be great, Beatles. It is going to be great. That it will be wonderful. As to who, yeah, we start listing those ones that just really stand out, like the top ones. And yeah, and I haven't even built page. So let me pull up the sheet that I'm working off of right here, which is going to be, drag it over. Boom. Here's where I'm going to, here's Sandtop. I'm working on him right now, right? So I'll look through here and I'll take a look at some of the lines that I like. I'll go look at his major league equivalency numbers, and then I'll go into give you a good example of how we can use. I don't know what years I'm using for him, but what's cool with him is I can take the MLEs and let's go over here, and I can go over to Sandtop, for instance, and I can say, okay, I want to go advanced stats. I want to do his batting neutralized, and I want to take Sandtop and I want to put him. Oh, let me log in. Here's the cool thing. So for him, I'm going to use, I can get his MLEs for the year I'm going to use right here, which has his major league equivalency lines here. And just for sake of argument, let's say, I want to, I'm going to use him for, let's say, 1922 or 23 or whatever. I'll take him and I'm going to convert him to a neutral park in 1923 National League. This will change the stats and give me those lines, and then I can pick the 3 that I'm going to use, for example. Only the selected rows, boom, then I get that data, and then I can convert these based on, games played, at bats, or whatever. I can create this line, my MLE line, and then come up with my final line. So that's just a little bit about how I'm working through all of this good stuff. And then we can see with my neutralized, this gives me my line right over here. So you can see these are all the players that I've done. So, whoops, dropping around here. These are all the players that I've done so far. I've got a bunch of stuff here where I'm crunch numbers and all this good stuff. I've got his MLE lines here. I'm going to use 21, 22, and 24. So you can see I'll convert him to 22, and I'll take that line and then the neutralized line and combine them and come up with my slice for Louis Sandtop. So he'll be coming pretty soon. But who do I do next? Hey, it's whoever I'm interested in. I come right here and say, Negro Leagues wins above replacement career, and let's take a look at everybody I've built. And this gives me a list. See, I've built everybody down here to Satchel Paige, which means, yep, I probably got to do him next, right? I've done Jose Mendez, I've done Pete Hill. So I'm just kind of working my way down the list. I'll skip over a few now and then. Like I've worked some players down here. Maybe I want to go build I did Judy Johnson, Rats Henderson. I mean, you can't beat that name, Rats Henderson. So maybe I'll do him. But I think now this is just the top 100, right? But we could also go top by position. So let's just take a look at catchers. This will list all the catchers in a row. So I've done Mackey, Gibson, Troop. Now I'm going to do Sandtop. Petway I've done. I won't be doing Campanella because we're going to have a good Campanella slice in the majors. But for Page, we're going to want his slice coming from here. But here's some other good catchers as we go down the list. Take a look at second baseman. I've got these first 3. Here's an interesting one that I have not done. Walter Kennedy, also a part-time pitcher. Frank Warfield, somebody mentioned Warfield's right there. pull my chat back up and take a look at it. Yeah, I agree with you. No, I agree with us doing games on both of our channels and trade back and forth and have fun. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I mean, I don't know if we're compiling a list. I think Beatles maybe we need to get together and look at. I know I don't know if Arnold mentioned. I think Arnold mentioned he would be interested. Arnold Hunter, I know Ken, but MV. I mean, all of us that are. Well, we're going to have 8 teams. We're going to have 10. How many people do we have for the league? I think we should be able to get at least 8. Who knows if we could get up to 10 teams worth? But we'll see where we go with it. But I think for February for sure, you're going to have enough ammo here to run some games, couple 2 or 3 all-star teams to kind of play around with, right? But for our draft league, we'll definitely want to have time to get that built out and a good draft and all that good stuff. Um, yeah, that'll be fun. Let's see what else we got. Shortstops. All of these are built. These I just did Sam Bankhead, so we've got the top 5 are done already with the 2 teams I've got. Let's go to third baseman. I've got Wilson. I haven't done any of these other 2. I've got Beckwith in there, Judy Johnson, Dandridge is done. Some other players to look at. So this is just a great tool to figure out how I'm going to build, right? Because it's giving me the best at each position based on their career WAR. So I'm at least building the better known players first, hopefully. And let's look at pitchers. So I've got Williams. I got to get Page done. I've got Brown, Foster. I need Dick Redding. So I'm going to add over here on my file. I'm going to add them now so I don't forget them. We're going to go typing them in. Satchel Paige and then Dick Redding. They're going to be the next 2 I do after I get done with Louis at the catcher position. I think I'm going to have to draft Fats Jenkins or Jelly Roll Gardner to find. Let's take a look at that. Where is Fats? So, and Big Clue's going to be into. So, Fats Jenkins here. There he is. Basic batting, 338 lifetime hitter. Left fielder. The cool thing here, too, we go into fielding, you can break it down by position for, yeah, pretty much a solid left fielder. And we got Gardner. Let's take a look at Jelly Roll. And Fats is 5'7", 165. So how fat really was he? And we got Jelly Roll Floyd, Jelly Roll Gardner right here. He's got some real good percentiles as far as his range out in center field and right field. But at 280 hitter, all right. So not as big a hitter, but no doubt if we go look at his fielding by position, we're going to see how many runs he saved at that. So he's his premier defender, I would say. Let's take a look at his fielding. You can see how much his arm center fields. He's got a little bit, probably average to above average arm, but his range is great. I mean, look at this year in 24. That's a high number. That's huge. That's he's 9 to 10, 9-ish material. Just quick glancing at the files you might use, probably 9-ish in the field. 5'7", 160. So you got Jelly Roll and Fats, all a couple real small guys. Yeah, very great, really good fielder. Spotswood Poles. Yeah, what a great name. Beetle. So we know Beatles if he gets the first pick. So let me tell you what. How about this for a poll question? I'll put it in here. first pick. Just think about it. You've got the first pick. Who is your first pick? I mean, you've got Pop Lloyd, you've got Oscar Charleston. I mean, you've got Josh Gibson. I mean, there's no wrong answer. Oh, MV is going for defense at second. He wants Bingo DeMoss. He wants a speedy bunting, Gold Glove second baseman. Beatles is going to go with Pop Lloyd. I don't have an answer for this. I think I might be with Big Clue on this. If I might, gosh, let me go back and take a look at. We don't have all these players done yet, right? But let's take a look at. Um, Man, Josh Gibson's tough. I mean, he can play catcher. You got a good fielding catcher who can just plow the ball like a Ruth or a Garrick. I mean, that's. Can you imagine this? The other cool thing is we ought to do in this league is we get to pick the park, right? So we should draft like at the beginning, what park are you going to play in? What town and park are you going to have? Because then you can think, gosh, what do I do with a Josh Gibson if I bring him into a real home run friendly park, right? That adds a lot of it. Or you got a team with Bingo DeMoss and pitchers, you put them in a park that doesn't give up a lot of home runs, right? So you're going to draft to maybe your park strength or whatever. That brings in a, yep, playing in Pittsburgh, put them in Forbes, right? And then we can go. Let's look at this. So we've got Gibson built now. He's neutralized in 1935. So let's do a what if. Or maybe we take Pop Lloyd. I'm going to do a what if with Pop Lloyd here. Big clues in rare form here. We don't even have Robbie in here to defend himself or lobby for any female, but Big Clue is spot on here, right? Um, yeah, first off, before I go run and do the what if, gosh, this is a guy. I just look at this and I think, look at Oscar Charleston. Look at these numbers with power. But then I say, what about Cristobal Toriente? Here's a guy that can hit. Yeah, he's not going to hit with the same home run power, but he's a 370 hitter and he can pitch in an emergency, right? And he can play some other positions. The other guy, Martin Dehigo. I mean, this guy can pitch. He's an above average fielder and everything, and he can hit. Or do you grab Josh Gibson and just let him plow the ball? Yeah, and Big Clue's right. You start looking at like the scarcity. What do they call that? What is the VAM, the value above mean? Big in fantasy football, right? It's like it's not some, you know, you don't try to grab somebody if you know there's going to be other selections. It's the one that really stands out at their position that's like bang. So let's have some fun with this. Pop Lloyd. So let's take a look at let's go to our what if. Oh gosh, where is the what if? League report. Help me up, Beatles. Every time I get on here, I always have this. Players, what if? Players, reports, players, what if? So let's take a look at, um, let's refresh. We've got the whole file right here, right? So we're saying neutral park, and we move them to 1922. You're going to notice they're at a neutral park. Now I'm going to tell them, let's go, want Forbes? Okay. So now if you take the year that they're built in, right? So if we take Pop Lloyd and we move him over to Forbes, look at this. He's going to see his average and a little bit on one of his home runs. He's going to drop a little bit to put him in Forbes. So Forbes must be pretty pitcher friendly during that. Now let's take him and put him in. Let's look at Josh Gibson though. Gibson look at he gets reduced big time. Now let's grab about Fenway. Okay. Yeah, very pitcher friendly. You can see that. Anybody want to see? How about Sportsman Park? Thinking of another one that was used. Oh, how about the Polo Grounds? Look at Gibson with the Polo Grounds. Now, let's grab a specific year. I think he's about let's put him in 1930. Bam! Look at that. 1930. He's going to town. So the cool thing is just putting him in the Polo Grounds. Look what that does with that. What was down the left field line? Something just nuts, right? So he's going to tear it up right there. Pop Lloyd gets a little bit more home run pop. Yeah, so Gibson, his average would drop down a little bit, but he's going to drop down in his doubles for sure in that part. But yeah, if he's a pull hitter, he's going to go to town. So anyway, it's cool to think about what park do you want to put him in, right? So that's another cool thing in the draft league is pick your franchise or your park, or and then really think about, man, what kind of team do you want to put in there? To me, that's what makes it fun. Yeah, very short porches in the Polo Grounds. Grove gets the no. Let's take a look at the pitchers too. So we go report player. What if? Let's view pitchers. Change it over to pitching. And what kind of a pitcher do we want to see? So here's your pitching lineup, right? So let's go to Ford Field, see how this alters. And it sure looks like it reduced their opponent batting. Well, no, depends on where they're coming from, right? So yeah, reduced home runs. Look at this. It cut Bullet Rogan. He goes to pitch in Forbes. He's expected to give up 6 home runs. That gets cut in half. Very pitcher friendly, right? Same thing with Martin Dihigo. Interesting. It drops their a little bit. Let's take a look at Comiskey Park, another big park, right? And that's another home run friendly. So this is reducing some of the batting by moving them into Comiskey. Interesting. Never a no hitter at Forbes. That's what Beatles wants. He's going to take Forbes Field. He's going to draft this All-Star Negro League team, and he wants to replicate what he did in baseball for Windows and have a no-no in that league. I know what he wants. He can sense it. A Forbes no-hitter with this league. He would love it. Mm. So anyway, fun stuff with the what if as we go through here and start. And this is another thing too. I think Robbie or somebody mentioned it. Before we have the draft and all that stuff, send the file out to everybody so that you can sit there and go in and use this what if and play with your parks, figure out what park you want, right? I mean, I think we use some of the real parks during that time, but you bet. Anyway, Just thought I'd come on here. What do we got? We got six of us hanging out here, but I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna keep this one under an hour. Oh my God, I was gonna come on here for like 45 minutes. It's been an hour and 25. I'm gonna keep this under an hour and 27 minutes for sure and say goodbye. But just wanted to share a little bit about that, talk about some of the features, and then people always post good questions in here. But yeah, I'm really getting excited with some of the progress. I think Big Clue mentioned, I've got 38, which is more than we've got in the hall. So we're making good comment or good progress with it. So more to come as we progress through the Buck O'Neill Tribute League. Um, Yeah, and Beatles said that most of them use Negro League parks, right, based on their team schedule. I know Sportsman, I know Comiskey quite a bit, especially as one team's pretty ready to take an MLB All Stars right now. Yeah, MV, I'm going to tell you by the end of this week, I'll have that ready for B. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it ready so that we can have two teams. And then what I may do so that Beatles could, oh, good, Arnold's here. Arnold, I was just sharing with him earlier. You had me laughing when he sent me a message about Arnold had this aha moment last night, and like all of us, our wives look at us like we're freaking nuts for doing this kind of stuff. But Arnold was getting inspired watching some documentary on Ken Burns documentary, and I was watching a documentary on the Negro Leagues. I think I posted it in. It might have been a different one because I watched several while I was on the bike yesterday. And this one was really good, talking about all the East-West All-Star games that took place in Chicago. Um, that would be great. So I think Arnold's feeling inspired to go and kind of create some All-Star game teams for him to play. But yeah, I think what I'll do is once I get the teams, I may balance them out and kind of look at their OPS plus and pitcher, and I'll get two teams and I'll kind of balance them out a little bit, and then I'll ship that off to Beatles if Beatles would be gracious enough to run a game on his channel and call the play-by-play for our very first um, test, we'll call it beta test, with a couple all-star teams. I'm hoping Beatles gives me a thumbs up to that, but I'll probably be sending him those files before Friday. And then this weekend, what I mentioned earlier, Beatles, is I want to work and grab a major league equivalent team of some all-stars between 1900 and 1940. So then we can start seeing how the two blend together. That's one thing I want to test out for sure. So good stuff coming. Arnold says hi. Perfect timing. Arnold's just ready to wrap it up. I'm going to head out, but I'm sure we'll see each other again if Beatles is around doing something with Ned McGreevy or whatever later. Definitely hop on that. But if I have some time later on. But yeah, good stuff. Should have something to you by Friday, Beatles, and that would be fun. So stay tuned for that. And I will add, I'm going to make sure I add some of these premier players here so we can have a real good all-star game. Get Satchel Paige done. Who else have I got down on here? I got Dick Redding and Satchel Paige for sure. Make sure we have a couple good balanced all-star teams. And when I send you that, Beatles, I'll send you the player file with it so that you can, the photo file, so you can have that. And I'm looking forward to seeing them play it. So with that, everybody take care, and I'll keep updating.